Ladies and gentlemen, if you are not optimizing your Performance Max campaigns correctly, then you are lighting your money on fire. I can't tell you how many accounts I've looked inside of, and Performance Max seems to be on this huge downtrend every single week. My name's George. I run an agency called ClickSpring Advertising. We're spending over $500,000 per month on Google Ads for ecom brands. And today I want to walk you through exactly how we optimize our PMax campaigns to get better and better results week on week and month on month. So first of all, what actually is Performance Max? If you don't know what that phrase means or what PMax means, I'm going to explain it to you right now. Essentially, Performance Max is Google's main campaign type, really. It's the one that they're constantly pushing, and it is essentially all of Google's different other campaigns rolled into one package, okay? So it is the shopping ads that you see, the little product images that you see when you search up a product. It's search, it's YouTube ads, display ads, discovery ads, basically all of the different placements Google owns rolled into one kind of package, and your ads show up on all of these different placements at different times, depending on, which customer is serving those ads to, okay? So because there's so much going on here, there's a lot of things that we need to do on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis to make sure that the campaign is going in the right direction and to improve the performance we're getting. Now, for those of you who are interested in us setting up, running, and managing your Performance Max campaigns and Google Ads, there's going to be a link in the description to set up a one-on-one chat with me, completely free, and I'll walk you through how we do this for our brands. But of course, no need to do that because I'm going to be giving away all the value for free on this channel. So please hit subscribe. And without further ado, let's jump into the video. Okay, so jumping in here, let's look at a Performance Max campaign. So this is one of our clients, and this is the last 60 days between the 1st of September 2023 and the 31st of October. So going back a couple months now, I wanted to grab this time frame because it's a really clear example of how we were able to optimize one of our clients' campaigns. Now, of course, you can argue this kind of time frame is right before Q4, so things are going to be trending up anyway, but I would argue against that, and I would say that even though this is kind of that time frame, there were some definite improvements to take this campaign from doing 1.7 ROAS, 1.3, or even 1, to where it was towards the end of the month 3, a 5, a 6, okay, and even before then at a 3 and at 4. There's a palpable increase in conversion value per cost, which, if you don't know, is revenue divided by ad spend, okay? So that is really the metric that most marketers are optimizing towards. So what optimizations can you actually make within Performance Max? Well, there are quite a few, but you don't have nearly as much control as you do in campaigns like standard shopping or search. The reason is because Performance Max is AI powered, okay? It's driven by a lot of machine learning and a lot of algorithms. And so Google doesn't really want us as advertisers messing with that. So it's a bit of a black box, but as I'm going to show you in this video, there are a few ways you can kind of pry open that box and look inside and see how to improve the performance of the campaigns. So we're going to start from top to bottom here, going through the various tabs that you can actually access within Performance Max. And I'm going to finish off with a really big secret that I think a lot of you are going to really benefit from. It's a special script, a special spreadsheet that actually allows us to pull all of the data out of Performance Max and see exactly what we're working with on a nice spreadsheet. And my team and I literally look at this thing every single day. So stick around for that. That's the last thing I'm going to show you. So starting off, should you look at the recommendations tab, right? I mean, this is kind of where, a lot of beginners or a lot of people new to Google Ads are going to go for optimization tips, okay? Now, my advice is no. And the reason why is because Google Ads is a business as well, okay? So they have the incentive to, yes, get you good results so you keep working with them, but also get you to spend as much money as you possibly can so that they get richer, okay? So these recommendations, first of all, not only are they completely, automatically and AI generated, which means they're not going to necessarily be the most accurate, they are probably going to lead you to spending more and more and more. For example, often one we see is this one here, set a target ROAS. So this one is actually going to encourage you to increase your budget as well as set a T ROAS. And so here you can see it wants us to increase the budget from $900 per day to $2,000 per day here. So yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind. Okay, so moving on from that, we're going to jump into the first really important tab here, which is insights. Now, insights are where you're going to get the most amount of data. I know a lot of ads people, media buyers kind of live at the campaign level, so they're kind of just seeing overall data, but this insights tab is going to really dive deep and show you some really important things. So the first thing we're going to cover is the kind of overall performance tab here. Okay, now you can see there are a couple of things we're looking at here. So you've got ROAS in the gray, and you've got the cost in red. Now this is not for the same time period that we were looking at. This is actually for a little bit more recently, which you can see here. But the reason why this is so important is because there's a lot of conversion lag with Performance Max. So if you get a sale or a couple of sales today, those sales aren't actually going to show up on Performance Max necessarily until a couple of days later. It's just how the campaign is. So this kind of widget here is going to do its best to combat that. So you're actually going to see that this is a projected ROAS and a projected conversions. Okay. So you can see this campaign is projected to receive 80 more conversions in, from this time period. Okay. So that's the first thing, definitely look at that. Then you've got performance shifts. Again, not really going to give you too much data there. But the thing that I would recommend that you look at, and this is kind of where we can start talking about optimization actions, is the search terms. You can see here, you can actually filter by top performing search categories, top demand, etc. Now they're called search categories because within this, there are multiple different keywords, okay? So that's why they're called categories, but you can actually see the conversion value that's coming from each of these and the search volume as well. Now, you can use this in a variety of different ways. So the first thing that I would recommend is that if you're seeing a specific search category or search term continuing to crop up, I would recommend adding it in to Performance Max, okay? And what do I mean by adding it in? Well, when you build a Performance Max campaign, you can have the option to add search themes, okay? Now, I would recommend you add the top performing keyword into the search themes within your Performance Max campaign so that you give Performance Max a signal to go after, okay? So that is the first thing I would recommend. The second thing I would recommend based on this is if you keep seeing, again, a very kind of popular search category, I would actually recommend you adding this into your product feed. Now, this isn't strictly a Performance Max optimization, but it kind of is, because if you improve your product feed, your Performance Max campaign is going to improve. If you don't know, your product feed is essentially how your shopping ads are shown. So it is hosted on Google Merchant Center and it contains all of your product data. Okay, so the names of your products, the descriptions of your products, the attributes of your products. And so what you can do is in the title, you have 150 characters to play with. So you can obviously state the name, the title of the product, of course, but you can also add in a few extra search terms that are performing really, really well. And what this does is when people search up for this term, Google is going to obviously serve your shopping ad and the two are going to match, and it's going to increase quality score. It's going to, lead to more clicks, a higher CTR percent, and hopefully a higher conversion rate as well. Okay. So that is the first thing that I would look at here. Now you can do a very similar thing with audiences. If you see a specific audience has a very high index, I recommend you add it in to your Performance Max audience signal. Okay. And an audience signal is comprised of segments. So audience segments like in markets, but it's also comprised of demographics, which you can see here. It's also comprised of remarketing segments as well, if you want your Performance Max campaign to do remarketing. So I'd recommend you look at the index. If it's very, very high, like this one is here, you could potentially look at adding it in. Okay, so that's enough of that. Moving down, let's look at the asset groups. Okay, so what you can see here are the two asset groups we have in this Performance Max campaign. If you didn't know, asset groups are similar to ad groups, but they're called asset groups because they obviously house more than just ads. They actually house all of your assets. So your images, your videos, your headlines, your ad copy, of course, yes, but also your ad extensions, basically everything that makes up a Performance Max campaign, because there's so many parts to it. It's not just ad copy, it's also very visual as well. So that's why we call it an asset group. Now, best practice for this is, in my opinion, to have your asset groups segmented and divided by your product kind of theme or product category. So for this client, we have two different types of watches, okay? And obviously, because these watches are different, we're gonna have different assets, different ad copy, and different things to include in those asset groups. That's why we separate them, so that the ad copy, images, extensions are more relevant to the products that we have in the listing group, which is essentially, part of that asset group, and it determines what products are in that asset group. And that is going to lead to a higher quality score, higher click-through rate, yada, 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 okay? Now, what optimizations can you do here? Well, what you can do is you can come down here to view details on the bottom right. And if you click view details, you're going to get a performance score, okay? So you're gonna be able to see exactly how well the audiences and the customers are responding to each of your assets, okay? So these are all of our headlines, all of our descriptions here. You're gonna see good, best, good, best, good, best, but you can see here one that says low, okay? So an optimization action that you can take here is to swap out any assets that are low quality, because this means that you are spending money for a poor result. Okay, so we don't want that. We want to switch them out and at least get good, but really obviously should be optimizing for best. Now, moving on, we have the listing group. So the listing group is, as I said, what determines which products show in your asset groups. And for the longest time, when I was learning Google Ads and Performance Max, I didn't really get this because it looks quite complicated, but I'm going to try and break it down for you. So you can see basically we have a listing here. This is a single product, okay? Now it doesn't have to be. You can segment this out by item ID, which is what we have here. This is the item ID, but it can also be by, for example, category, by custom label, by brand, okay? Depends what you have in your Google Merchant Center and how you have separated and categorized your products. What we recommend though is you keep things simple, just use item ID, and you can actually select the individual items that you want to show up in your appropriate asset groups. So what can you do here? Well, you can include and exclude certain products, okay? So you're gonna want to use the listing group tab in tandem with the products tab here. And you can obviously see the performance of certain products, right? So this one is, doing pretty well. This one's doing pretty well, et cetera, et cetera. And so you can then decide whether you want to, based on the item ID, which is what we just looked at, potentially exclude some products, okay? So if a product is dragging your campaign down, or it just hasn't got any impressions, any clicks, this is a huge one, okay? Or, if you get a product that's got 100 clicks, but 0 sales, that can be a good indication that you want to be taking that product out of the campaign. That's our general rule. It's gonna be different based on whether you're a high ticket seller or you're a low ticket seller. But for example, you may want to exclude certain products to improve the performance of the campaign. So you could do that here in the listing group section. All you do is just come here and you click exclude. Next, let's jump into content. So this is actually a really interesting one. We highly recommend that you make some placement exclusions in your side of your PMax campaign, okay? So you can actually come here and exclude apps. You can exclude apps, you can exclude certain websites, okay? So what we'd recommend is excluding all apps because it's kind of going to be low quality traffic, and also excluding kind of junk websites. So you can actually exclude specific websites by uploading an account exclusion script, and that's going to make sure that your Performance Max only spends on high quality placements, okay? So that's another optimization action that you can take. Highly recommend you just do that as a standard setup procedure when you are building Performance Max campaigns. Next, let's jump into settings and have a look what we can see here. So you're going to obviously see, the campaign name, the goal, etc., etc. I would also make sure that you're only using conversion actions. Well, you make sure that you're bidding towards a primary purchase conversion action with everything else as secondary. It's very, very important. But what we can see here, of course, is the bid strategy, okay? And the budget. So when it comes to optimizations, we want to be increasing the budget pretty consistently, okay? That's going to allow the campaign to spend more and increase its revenue and increase, ideally, its performance as well, okay? Although not always the case, but that is what we would consider that an optimization. So how much do you want to increase the budget by on your Performance Max campaign? Well, if it's performing well, if you're hitting a good ROAS, if you have a good CPA, you want to be increasing the budget 10 to 20% every single week. Highly recommend you do that, okay? Similarly as well, what we would recommend is on specific campaigns that are performing well, we would set a target ROAS. Now, for certain reasons, we're not doing that for this campaign. We're kind of running a bit of a test at the moment, but standard practice for us is to run a campaign on a maximize strategy, so max conversion value or max conversions for 30 days. And then we're going to want to set a target on that, okay? So a target ROAS or a target CPA based on the 30-day average. And that's going to essentially give Performance Max a bit of a goal, okay? It's going to give it a bit more data, and it's going to mean that it's pretty much in ideal situations going to stick to that ROAS or stick to that CPA if all goes well. So it gives you a bit more control, and then you can adjust that TCPA or TROAS accordingly. And again, this is something that you can iteratively improve over weeks and over months. So you can increase the TROAS or decrease the TCPA if it looks like that's possible based on the performance of the campaign, and therefore you get a more profitable campaign over time. Next thing here that you can also do is actually exclude specific URLs. So if you're running a full build campaign, that is a PMax campaign with images and videos as you typically would, then you want to make sure both of these are ticked on. I believe you can tick off text assets, but definitely make sure the final URL is on. And when it is on, you can actually exclude specific URLs. So this, obviously, you want to go ahead and start by excluding irrelevant pages like about us and privacy policy and all of these things. And then you're going to want to potentially start excluding underperforming landing pages. Now you can see which landing pages are underperforming by going to the all campaigns view, going to landing pages, and then filtering by the Performance Max campaign to see a list of the landing pages that Performance Max is sending traffic to. If you see any ones that are underperforming, well, you can grab the URL and exclude them via the final URL setting. Finally, you're also going to be able to look at location settings, okay? So this is essentially going to give you obviously a breakdown of which countries, which areas are performing well and which aren't. And that can, again, give you a little bit more flexibility in terms of excluding certain ones that are underperforming, etc. So we can see here the UK not doing so well. We would look at potentially excluding that. Now, finally, I want to cover a really cool and sort of secret optimization that we've seen work incredibly well. This is ad schedule, okay? And you can actually set bid adjustments based on your ad schedule. So if you can see specific days that perform well and specific days that underperform, you can actually set a bid adjustments to bid higher on certain days and bid lower on others. For example, we can see Tuesdays perform a lot worse than potentially Sundays. So we would set a negative bid adjustment. So Google spends 20% less on Tuesdays and 20% more on Sundays. And that is going to kind of balance things out and increase the performance of the campaign. You can go into ad schedule and break out your days. You can do it by day. You can even do it by hour. And we would recommend doing it by hour if you have potentially a big sale day, something of that nature. This is going to allow you to spend a lot more, okay? So you can actually increase bid adjustments by up to, 100% or so. And so that's going to allow you to basically double your spend on specific hours, specific days. So it's a really cool strategy that we've been leveraging for our clients to spend more and make more. Finally, I want to give you the secret sauce. This is the Performance Max script that is created by Mike Rhodes on LinkedIn. Highly recommend you go and check him out and give him a follow, and also go and download this script. Now, this is going to tell you exactly what is going on inside of your Performance Max campaign, okay? So it's going to give you the value, it's going to give you the spend, okay? It's going to give you the even more granular data so you can start to see exact spends on certain placements, exact conversions on certain placements, okay? It's going to allow you to see the videos that are running. I mean, there's so much data here. And yeah, this is something that we use almost every single day when we're running Performance Max. Now, what we're looking for here is to really maximize spend on either shopping or video. This tends to be the most profitable channels for most of the brands that we work with. So what we don't love to see is when there's a lot of display in the gray here, you can see that is when we'd potentially look at trying a few things like improving the product feed to try and encourage PMax to spend on shopping, or potentially even launching a new campaign to drive it in the right direction. So this is an absolute essential if you want to optimize your PMax campaigns. Now, if you want us to come in and optimize your Performance Max campaigns or allow you to spend more and make more with Google and YouTube ads, then go ahead and click the link in the description to have a one-on-one chat with myself. Completely no pressure. Leave your wallet at home. We'll just see basically whether you can help your brand scale, and yeah, if we can provide you value. All right. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, go check me out on Twitter, posting more Google and YouTube ads content on there. And I'll see you next time. Bye.